Today we're going to be reviewing the board game Mysterium. It's a game that reminds me a lot of the game Clue, and so I think if you're a big fan of that, then you may enjoy this game. Also, it is a cooperative game that can be played to up to 7 players. So if you have a lot of friends that you enjoy playing board games with and want to change a pace, about, not really competing with one another, but playing together rather than against, this might be a game for you. So let's go ahead and get into the review now. There are a lot of pieces to Mysterium. You have separate decks of cards for both the players and the player ghost. You have 6 packets and pieces for the investigating players. You have a clock to keep track of your turns, and you even have a screen for the ghost player. All in all, it takes a while to get this whole game set up, and it also takes a while to put it all back away after you are done. But I do think that it is a great game, even in spite of all the pieces, and it's a game that many players can enjoy, and just having a bunch of pieces oftentimes can feel intimidating to somebody who maybe isn't into board games as much, but I have found that even those who are not really big into board games can still enjoy Mysterium. So don't let all the pieces kind of scare you off a little bit. Let's go ahead and get into the gameplay here. First off, I want to remind you that this is a review and not a walkthrough video, so I'll only be talking about the main mechanics of the game, not every little finite detail here. So the game is a cooperative game where all players are working together to solve a murder. The ghost player is the victim that is trying to help the detectives solve the crime. The ghost player can only communicate through picture cards and can only use the cards available in their hand. They get 7 cards in their hand. Now, the ghost player can mulligan these cards to get a different hand if they feel like their hand is a really bad hand. Also, every time they give a card, a picture card, to an investigating player, they get to draw another card. So their hand is always at 7 no matter what when they're searching through. But I have found as a ghost it can be very difficult sometimes to communicate in this way with pictures, because sometimes you just have a really bad hand and mulliganing doesn't actually fix the problem. But moving on, the game also has 2 phases to it. So the first phase is investigators spend their time trying to solve their own mystery, essentially. And it feels like the game Clue, as I've said earlier. You're trying to find the killer, you're trying to find the room, and then you're also trying to find the weapon. Each investigating player must solve their particular killer, room, and weapon before the clock runs out. Time is kept track of with a clock, and the clock is based on turns. I believe you get about 7 or 8 turns or so to try to complete your mystery before time runs out. If you manage to get through, every player manages to get through this part of the game, it goes into the next phase. And the next phase is where the investigators must figure out which of their crimes that they solved is the true crime. So what that means is that even though every investigator found a killer, room, and weapon, only one of the killer rooms and weapons is actually correct. The rest of them were decoys and therefore not correct. The ghost will give one final clue to the whole table to try to guide them toward the correct answer. Now, this one is different because you can't communicate in the second phase. In the second phase, you must vote rather than talk it through with your partners, which is an unfortunate part because I enjoy the first phase. The first phase, you're able to work together to talk about what you think the ghost player is trying to tell you through the pictures and stuff like that they're sharing with you. And that makes the game fun because you're working together and there's a lot of cooperation, communication going on. But the second phase is very different in that way. It's all secret voting and based on what you think actually happened rather than relying on your teammates. Moving on to my rating, I would rate this game a 4 out of 5. It has plenty of replay value because each person has a different perspective on the pictures. So that means that as long as the ghost player is being rotated, it's not the same person every time. And so therefore you don't learn their perspective, and you have to kind of adjust and change to each player. It helps add more replay value to the game. The game is also more relaxed from a competitive standpoint, since you're trying to work together to win rather than trying to beat out one another. And I think that makes the game a little bit more of a welcome change of pace. It makes it a lot more fun than just playing another version of Clue. The last part I would say is that even though the game isn't competitive, compared to other games, it is still a rather difficult game to win. So if you still want a challenge, this game will certainly fulfill that need. It has a range of different difficulties, controlling, for example, how many mulligans the ghost player can have, and how many turns it takes for the players to be able to get to the end. There's all kinds of different ways to make the game much more difficult, and therefore that kind of provides that challenge for those who are more on the competitive side of things rather than on the more casual side of things. If you have played Mysterium or have heard of the game before and want to share your thoughts, go ahead and let me know down in the comments below, and thank you for watching.